Hello, everyone. My name is Dan Jonas Roach, and I am the news editor here at the Architects newspaper. I'd like to welcome you all to the Lighting Effects with Coiled Wire Fabric live webinar, a CE Strong webinar series powered by the Architects newspaper. This webinar is sponsored by Cascade Architectural. This program is registered with the AIA CES for continuing professional education. Questions related to specific materials, methods, and services will be addressed at the conclusion of this presentation. This webinar is recorded and can be easily replayed when re-registered on the same webinar registration page. Please allow 7 business days to process certificate of participation and AIA credit reporting for this presentation. In this webinar, you will learn how to identify and recognize the specific nature of coiled wire fabric with its abilities to impact lighting, ventilation, and well-designed healthy spaces. Assess the use of coiled wire fabric to control or enhance the use of sunlight to create improved indoor environments for the welfare of their occupants. Explain the options available for using electrical lighting, including low voltage or energy-efficient LED lighting for interior and exterior installations, and determine ways to use coiled wire fabric to receive projected imagery, both fixed and moving, for artistic or performance purposes. We encourage you to ask questions using the Zoom Q&A button found at the bottom of your Zoom window. Now, I'd like to introduce you to today's presenters, Ann Smith and Amy Allen. Ann is the Director of Business Development, focusing on developing strategic relationships in the architectural community. With over 20 years of experience in the building industry, Smith is known for her collaborative approach in the design and construction process and is passionate about integrating functionality and innovation with dynamic design. Amy manages in-depth coordination with designers and contractors from project conceptualization to completion on high-profile projects in various sectors. Her years of experience have equipped her with an intimate knowledge of Cascade's engineered systems and how to creatively apply them for stunning aesthetics while keeping budgets in line. Amy handles projects nationally and internationally. Remember to please leave your questions for Ann and Amy in the Q&A window. And without further ado, Ann Smith.
Hi, thank you, Dan. Well, we're very excited to present to everyone today. Amy and I are going to tag team a little bit. So let me just pull up my presentation here. All right, are you able to see my screen?
Yes.
Awesome. All right. Great. Well, we'll go ahead and get started. Cascade, just by way of introduction, for those of you who may not be familiar with our company, we are a family-owned business. We're based out of Portland, Oregon, just south of Portland in Tualatin. And we've been doing this for well over 30 years in this industry. Very proud to be an American manufacturer. I think that gives us a real advantage in the market. And our systems are shipped globally. So if you have international projects, that's something we've done for decades. So we're fully capable of that. We really take a full system approach. So you're going to see everything surrounding the material and which is the foundation of our offering. But we also provide all the attachments, engineering, PE calcs. Powder coating is actually applied in-house, which gives us some ability to provide that very cost effectively, and then also to do a lot of custom items that way. So typically we work with you from design through detailing, specification, and then we work very closely with the construction team to provide a proper installation. So for those of you who are familiar with Cascade, this will be a good reminder of how amazing this product is, and hopefully it will also expand your knowledge with our recent developments. So with that, we'll jump right into the presentation as soon as this Slide loads. Awesome. All right. Le Corbusier was accredited with the quote that architecture is light, and architects spend a lot of design time working natural and artificial lighting into buildings in ways that are both functional and beautiful. So of course, it's this interplay that light onto different materials and surfaces, the way it spreads through a three-dimensional space that gives a total experience. So factor in the time of day, different lighting conditions, and that total process is a very dynamic one, not just a static event. So among the materials that are a part of an architect's palette for incorporating light into buildings, coiled wire fabric is becoming more widely used medium. With variable light transmission and reflective qualities, it provides a very customizable but cost-effective option for achieving a wide range of design outcomes. So this course, like Dan mentioned, is going to delve into the specifics of this versatile material and look at ways that it can enhance architecture through light. So first, let's understand the material itself. Coiled wire fabric is such a unique material. We refer to it as fabric due to its fabric-like nature. The material is basically made up of individual coils, very rounded coils that interlock together. And this very simple corkscrew method can achieve virtually any width and length, making the material much more flexible and open compared to a rigid product. So sheet products are typically limited to maybe a 4x8, maybe a 6x10 sheet. And typically they will require a frame on all four sides or some type of support to maintain that rigidity. And it tends to create more of a grid style design. Coiled wire fabric, on the other hand, can be made as long as you want and as wide as you want. There's virtually no limit. It's lightweight, and so it can give you some of that design functionality or flexibility. So for interiors, architects and designers use coiled wire fabric for window treatments, ceiling features, wall coverings, security gates, space dividers. On the building exterior, it can be solar shading, fall protection, and facade treatments, even parking garage enclosures. So the base material is metal: aluminum, steel, solid brass, marine grade, stainless, and copper cladded steel is the most common. The weave size is measured by the tunnel that the spiral makes. So anything from 3/32 is the smallest that we make, all the way up to 7/8 inch is a large weave. The other measurement is going to be the wire size. So those two variables basically will make up that weave. We refer to the fabric in the coil direction. So what you see on the screen here is a vertical coil direction. It can also be turned 90 degrees and have a horizontal coil direction. All these variables will impact the aesthetic, the weight, the functionality, the performance of the final fabric. So another attribute that makes coiled wire fabric so unique, and I really don't know any other material that can do this, is its ability to be spliced on site. So basically we take a splicer coil, and once it's engaged, it stitches two panels together. And then the other end is knuckled, and you can't even tell
Hello, Anne?
I
Yes,
Oh,
I think I got uh, lost there. Sorry about that. Not sure what happened. Let's see, 1 second. Okay. So there's a multitude of ways to attach coiled wire fabric. It can be straight or curved, tensioned or draped, operable, stationary, manual, even motorized. And many of these attachment methods are pre-engineered, so ready to go. You can drop them, take them off the website, drop them into your drawings, or we can customize a particular design or performance. Unfortunately, we don't have time to explore all of these in detail today, but there's really good information on our website, or you can always reach out to us directly. So coiled wire fabric is often used as a decorative design element that will add drama and elegant screening to both interior and exterior applications. It's very customizable and it's available in virtually unlimited finishes. So the material can come in its natural uncoated state, like you see here. This project utilized a copper cladded steel. It's a beautiful contrast to this turquoise stair, making a statement that can be viewed from inside the building or from the outside. Coiled wire fabric can also be powder coated for sharp, long-lasting, and durable aesthetics with a wide range of color options. We can even do custom colors with different effects. These finishes have a low VOC content to protect against exposure when used on interiors. In fact, our coiled wire fabric products carry declare labels with the International Living Institute, Future Institute. The openness of the coiled wire fabric will allow light to pass through, which is often very desirable. And due to its controllable nature, it can be used for high levels of light transmission or reduced levels for solar shading, which can contribute to energy savings. Its three-dimensional shape also has a lot of surface area, so it can capture lighting, making it a unique surface for lighting effects or even lighting diffusion. How the light comes through and how transparent a particular product appears will be based on directly on the makeup of that particular weave and then the placement of the lighting. And you'll see examples through the presentation of that. So thicker wires, tighter weaves are obviously going to let less light through than thinner wires and more open weaves. Architects and designers can play with these variables to suit the needs of a particular space. As a window treatment, for example, it can diffuse natural daylight while still maintaining the views out and reducing the heat gain into the space. Fullness is another factor that can help diffuse or control light. The material, by using more material that is required to cover a given space, that billowing drapery effect can be achieved with an increased density. Now, don't be fooled by the elegance and soft appearance of coiled wire fabric. It's metal, so it's durable and it's strong. Because of its strength and durability, the material is effective in applications such as safety, fall protection, even blast mitigation, but most commonly security, different levels of security. So custom hardware can be added to the coiled wire fabric, creating a beautiful way to secure a space with flexible and an operable system. So coiled wire fabric is long-lasting, durable, and it's going to require minimal, if any, maintenance. And these security gates are something that can be tied down to a counter, or like you see here in a full height space, those same characteristics that allow light to transmit through is going to allow airflow. So it's very useful for places that require ventilation and visibility, but they need that physical separation or security, like cafeteria, coffee bars, retail spaces, cafes, that type of thing. Coiled wire fabric systems are lightweight in nature, so they're really ideal for retrofit or renovation projects, both interior and exterior. Typically, they don't require as much structure, and due to the short lead times, we can respond very quickly to short construction schedules or even last-minute changes. Coiled wire fabric is able to contribute to green and sustainable building design in several ways. So first of all, it's metal. So it can have a recycled content. It can also subsequently be recycled at the end of its service life. It has a very efficient manufacturing process, so there's little to no waste, and it's made in the US. The pre-finished or natural metals are also low emitting or VOC free. So most of our coiled wire fabric are Living Building Challenge Red List free and use no toxic chemicals in the manufacturing process. Then it's up to the designer on how it's used. It can enhance natural daylight, provide ventilation in interior spaces, or optimize energy performance. So for energy performance, it's used for exterior. It's been documented through independent studies that the energy consumptions can be as high, savings can be as high as 12%, where interior, it's just over 3%. But both instances is going to have some savings by mitigating that sunlight, reducing glare, and have the ability to control interior temperatures. And then finally, this installed system is very durable, easy to maintain for the client, and it has a long life cycle. So that's a really important thing to consider when you're comparing it to other materials like fabric or canvas or something like that. It's going to have a much longer life cycle. So when selecting coiled wire fabric as a material in your design, there's going to be a lot of choices on the details of how it's specified. We encourage you to work with a manufacturer that doesn't just sell rolls of raw mesh. Choose a highly skilled manufacturer who's going to review the specifics of your project, its requirements, and then suggest either standard options or even engineer a custom solution. You know, look for someone who's going to provide technical assistance regarding the attachment method, PE calcs, specification, shop drawings, and even be available to be on site during installation if that support is necessary. So here, I want to introduce Amy to talk to you about the next items. Amy?
So providing and keeping out natural daylight in buildings has always been a design challenge for architects and designers. And in really that balance of letting the natural light in without the effects of glare or overheating, all while trying to keep the outdoors visible is such a challenge. So in this next objective, we're going to review a few ways that coiled wire fabric can assist with keeping those views of nature, all while reducing glare and overheating within the space. So we're going to start with the exterior of the building, and then we're going to work our way inside. So as we looked at before, coiled wire fabric has a lot of attributes that makes it effective for light control. As Anne had mentioned, wire gauge, weave, fullness, but color can also assist with mitigating that sunlight. Typically, a lighter color, as shown in this example, reflects that direct sunlight away from the building, while adversely, a darker color on the material is going to absorb that sunlight, and then it's going to be radiating some of that heat. Another variable is the openness of the weave size can have that same effect. So the openness of the material it allows that airflow to pass through the coiled wire fabric, and that can contribute to heat gain in a space as well, especially like as you see here in parking garages that can require a certain amount of that air circulation. Placement on the face of the building also contributes to the reduction in glare and heat gain. So in this example, you can see here is that by placing the screens perpendicular to the face of the building, it can help provide that solar shading into that interior space. And the uniqueness of coiled wire fabric is that the material itself is quite transparent when you look at it head on. So, but once you turn it to its side or it's perpendicular to the space, it becomes much more opaque. And the example that's shown here is that interior space is being shaded because of the position of the coiled wire fabric on the outside of the building. But when you're on the interior, it becomes almost completely transparent. So therefore, you're not losing those views. You're also allowing that light to come in without the glare or the solar gains. As an alternative to covering, standard windows or openings, the material can also be used in its really natural, flexible state and installed horizontally, creating, beautiful shaded pathways from above. The transition from day to night can create its own dynamic effect on the face of a facade. So using the combination of natural sunlight during the day and electrical lighting at night can create an illusion of like a louver or removable panel. So you can see in this first picture of this application how the sunlight really picks up that beautiful copper metallic color on these exterior solar fins, and it helps by reducing the glare and the solar gain within the space. But now see what happens at night. So when the sun goes down, the lights turn on, the material practically almost disappears. And this function of using the transparency of the material and lighting can highlight the interior of that space without the expense of removing the exterior material or having it on some type of mechanics. So it's a beautiful way to highlight the interior of the building as well. In addition to sunlight, building components like glass, glazing, and even opaque assemblies can be subjected to other forces such as natural disasters or, unfortunately, man-made events. Coiled wire fabric as is what we call a catchment system. So the openness of this material lets that wind or that blast breathe through the coiled wire fabric, but it catches the debris, which we all know is what really causes the injury and damages to those interior spaces. And the lightweight nature of coiled wire fabric makes it a great add-on to buildings that are being occupied within government agencies or even in areas that are plagued by natural type disasters. Oh, now that we kind of have a slightly better understanding of how coiled wire fabric can be used effectively on building exteriors, we're going to bring it on inside. And so the beauty of bringing coiled wire fabric inside is that interior options tend to be, of course, a lot less expensive since they're not subjected to, the same harsh conditions as exterior applications. So we're going to review a few applications that coiled wire fabric can be used in an interior environment and how those can combat that natural sunlight. So Anne had talked a little bit about fullness earlier, and we're going to kind of circle back to go into a little bit more detail of what fullness is. And what fullness is the additional amount of material added to the width dimension to create that density or that pleating of the material, as you can see on the screen. So for example, if you have a 10-foot opening and you would like the 50% fullness option, you'll be provided 15 linear feet of material, which is then condensed into that 10-foot space. So the amount of fullness that is chosen will determine the transparency of the material. So 15% fullness is going to mimic more of like a flat panel. It's going to be very transparent, while 200% fullness is going to be very dense and it's going to be a lot more opaque. Interior window treatments are such an attractive and durable and really an economical alternative to standard window systems. And fullness is such an important factor when looking at coiled wire fabric as an interior window treatment. The increase and decrease in fullness percentage has a direct correlation on how much light is going to filter into that space. And coiled wire fabric can be used as a standalone system, or it can be paired with other textiles, creating like different textures or colors or light filtering capabilities. And in the vertical coil direction, it can be installed as either a fully fixed or an operable drapery system. The attachment can be curved, it can be segmented, straight, what makes it such a great alternative to guiding foot traffic throughout the space. And the open nature of the coiled wire fabric as such a soft, elegant division without blocking the views to other areas of that space. And mentioned earlier, coiled wire fabric's ability to allow that air to pass through the material is that attribute is exceedingly helpful in regards to HVAC systems. And it's not going to interfere with those HVAC components. So therefore it can be utilized, above, below, it can be adjacent to, and it still allows that air and that heat to radiate into the space. Another positive is that the material is not going to like bellow or flare or kick out like a traditional curtain was because of the openness of the material. And not just the openness, but it is metal, so it does have a little bit of heft to it. So therefore, when the HVAC system kicks on, the material, it's not going to like blow in the wind, and it's not going to, flutter when someone decides to walk by the material. So it's not just a beautiful product. It has a lot of functional qualities as well. And being metal, the material is very durable choice as it's not really hampered by the usage or wear and tear like other textiles, such as fabrics or plastics or woods. It can even be used over surfaces such as like glass to help keep that protected. And these factors make it ideal for separating spaces, enclosing or defining those smaller spaces, enhancing those beautiful lighting designs, and really creating a visual focal point into a space. All of the traits that really make coiled wire fabric ideally suited for the use with natural light also applies to the use of electrical lighting. And exterior lighting is becoming a more popular design element on things that used to be an afterthought, such as like parking garages or facades. So incorporating coiled wire fabric on a facade is going to allow for a lot of different dynamics throughout the day. So you can see here that during the day, the coiled wire fabric is enhanced by the sunlight. It's showing off that beautiful natural finish of the material. But then as soon as at night the lights come on, it can really create a huge canvas to project colors and designs onto that material. And a great example of utilizing electrical lighting on the exterior facade is a project called the Vermont, which is located in downtown Los Angeles. And this is such a beautiful, unique project because it is mimicked to look like a lotus flower and representation of the Korean culture, which is where this project is located. And it was a very unique and different way to utilize this material. And we were paired with a collaboration with an artist by the name of Cliff Gartner to really bring this vision to life. And that vision was to have this huge art budget, feature as part of the art budget, which really comprises of about a 70-foot wide by 45-foot tall undulating facade. And then it tops off with a 20-foot three-dimensional sculpture and a massive lighting package that really highlights both of these elements. And the exterior facade was lit up by all LED lighting, and you can see that it grazes the front, it grazes the side, it grazes behind the material. But what I really want to bring to your attention is how this lighting is accepted onto the material. And the lighting that was utilized for here was spot lighting, and you can see the hot spots on the material. And that really shows where that spotlight hits And then as soon as it starts to diffuse and cascades down the material, and it softens as it extends. So depending on what type of lighting you utilize with the material is going to show up differently on there. As we go through the presentation, you'll see more examples of that. Another feature to highlight in this project is the installation. As we mentioned earlier, the ability to splice the material allows for a much smaller crew. And this one highlights that perfectly. You can see there's 2 guys in the bucket truck. They're adhering the material. Then you have 2 members on the ground, which are helping hoist the material up. And of course, there's always 1 person supervising. And so installation is such an important consideration for any material. We have a little time-lapse video of the installation, and the full height panels are lifted and then they're unfurled into place and supported by that large structural element that you see on the top. There are then smaller intermediate supports at each of those floor slabs that keep the material from, hitting the face of the building, and it's really maintaining that curvature as it cascades down the facade. So floor to floor, you can see that there's no attachments, there's no vertical elements, there's no grid or substructure that's required. And then down below, there's about 5 feet or so that really just hang free. And it really allows a little bit of movement to the curtain itself. But it's really, excuse me, I apologize. It's really kind of holding that into place. And then the panels are come back and spliced together, creating an absolutely, definitely seamless facade. So depending on the design, coiled wire fabric typically requires a lot less structure, and attachments will also have a faster installation and less labor cost, which can have such a huge impact on the budget and the construction schedule. So it's really important for the GC and the contractors to understand the material and really budget that out correctly. The earlier those conversations really happen is for the best. And so once the curves are established, the subcontractor then comes back, and you can see that they're attaching this very thin laser cut aluminum strip, which is mechanically fastened directly onto the coiled wire fabric, creating that petal-like abstraction of the lotus flower. So once that is adheres, then holes are actually cut for the outriggers to penetrate through the coiled wire fabric. And then that 20-foot tall, $1.6 million chandelier is hung in the front of the building to create the complete dynamic effect. And the entire sculpture uses all LED lighting to bathe that lotus flower portion in such an intense, white light, while the screen and corresponding liturgy elements are engaged in a light show of rich changing colors. So this illuminated sculpture turns an otherwise, mundane type parking garage facade into such a vibrant, unique feature that sets this residential project apart from anything else in the area. And the use of coiled wire fabric made the work possible, both as an artistic medium and as a durable, functional material that will hold up over time. And this is the result. Building interiors use electrical lightings at all time of the day for a variety of purposes. And one of those benefits is that you have a lot more control over interior lighting than exterior electrical lighting due to less elements that you need to combat, such as, of course, sunlight. And I want to highlight this project and the difference in lighting. The lighting used on this project was an LED strip lighting, which is following that continuous curve of the attachment system. And really, the coiled wire fabric grabs that light and then it slowly diffuses it towards the bottom. In contrast to the project that we just looked at prior with the spotlighting, is that there are no hot spots on this type of application and this type of lighting that's used with the coiled wire fabric. So instead, it creates more of a glowing feel, a more of a beacon that is, right in the middle of this beautiful casino area. And of course, ceilings really no longer need to be flat, and lighting no longer needs to be linear. So you can take coiled wire fabric and use it to enhance the texture of the ceiling and then help create a unique and attractive alternative to rows of ordinary tube lighting type fixtures. And using coiled wire fabric for space separation is a unique, it's such a unique way as like a backdrop to like a lighting feature. So the dividers can be curved, they can be flat, they can be free forming or undulating softly, being able to separate that space. And can also be utilized for artfully cladding walls and by being able to create a lot of texture onto those walls. And by adding different types of lighting to the material to enhance that texture, it can really create that wow factor that you're looking for in the space. And color LED lighting, it can create such a visual like no other on coiled wire fabric. And the effect is really simply unattainable with like a solid or opaque type materials. And by installing light sources from several different angles, one color can pass through the first panel and then it interacts with the next, and it kind of creates a different and new tone. So it's really, really great for interior spaces such as, like corridors or entrances. And it just has a different visual impact on those type of areas. So I'm going to turn it back over to Anne, and she's going to close us out, and then we will be able to answer some questions.
So by now it's clear that light and coiled wire fabric can be used together in a variety of ways to enhance and illuminate the exterior or the interior of buildings in many different strategies. But there's still one more opportunity to use light onto coiled wire fabric that's both functional and attractive in many public settings: image projection. So coiled wire fabric can be used as a surface where imagery, signage, wayfinding, or even just artwork can be projected onto the surface of it. So now you're viewing the other side of that panel that you saw in the previous slide. And notice how tall this single panel is. The coiled wire fabric extends from the ceiling with no additional support or framing or midspan supports, capturing the light as it cascades down the surface. At the same time, in this particular arena, it's also transparent, so you're able to see through the material while it's still capturing that lighting that's coming from above. And just again, notice how large of a scale this is. You can see the people sitting down at the lower floor area. So just to see the size of them down there, then you can appreciate the scale of this entire panel. So one of my favorite projects that we've seen in a long time is the Museum of Tolerance that recently just opened in LA. And this gives you an example of where this could be appropriate. You can think casinos, sports venues, music theaters, even corporate branding can be optimized by artistic wayfinding and communication. So coiled wire fabric is transparent and opaque many times at the same time, but it really is dictated by the placement of the lighting. So in this museum, it's obviously using or capitalizing on that concept of lighting. With the light on both sides of the material, you're able to see through on the activity that's happening in the full space. And this combination of coiled wire fabric and lighting really creates an immersive engagement where there's video projected onto the screens that are softly guiding people through the space, and voice was actually added to these moving images for more of an interactive experience. In contrast, here it is dark on the other side of the screen of the fabric. So images become a little more crisp and refined. So obviously the type of projection in the imagery is going to have an impact on what is visible and seen. Other variables will be the underlying color of the metal, the weave size, and the wire gauge. So a lighter color fabric will be a little bit more reflective than a darker color. And the material can be draped with fullness or pulled taut, just depending on that density that is required for the look. Another image projected onto that same screen. It all depends on that effect that you're trying to achieve, but the fabrics with more open weaves are more suitable for like an abstract or ethereal effect. And then the tighter weaves are going to give you more crisper resolution and provide sharper images. But most importantly, it's the light source behind the fabric, or if it's dark, if it's behind the fabric, it'll appear more transparent. If it's dark behind the fabric, it's going to appear more solid. And it's really recommended to do mock-ups or experiment with those different options to make sure that you're getting the effect that you're looking for. The other thing I like to point out is that you can change that effect depending on the event or a particular experience that you're trying to have in a space. Then you can have lighting that will change and therefore change the effects onto the screen. So light and architecture obviously go hand in hand. Coiled wire fabric has been shown to be an effective tool to create a variety of lighting treatments in building design. The key to a successful installation is to understand the choices and the options available to you related to wire type, material, colors, weave, fullness, and the related characteristics of those. So we hope that you would collaborate with a manufacturer of these products that will ensure a coordinated, successful result for a well-designed space. So with that, we're finished with the official presentation and we're ready to move on into some questions.
Thank you. So we have some great questions in the Q&A. We have one from Keith who asked, do you have SHGC and VLT values for each coil type / size, like glazing information?
So we do have studies that we've done for like shading coefficients depending on the viewing angle. And so we can provide those numbers to you. Usually that would be put into like an energy model. Most energy models, as you know, there's a little bit of science and a little bit of guesswork and estimation and that kind of thing. So yeah, we can provide some of that information to you. It's really going to also depend on the other variables of your design. So what type of glazing is used, where the sun is coming from, that kind of thing.
Great. We have another one. Can cold wire fabric become an LED element?
Can become, I'm not sure I understand the question. Can become an LED element? Can definitely be used with LEDs if that's the question. Maybe just clarify that one.
Syed, if you'd like to clarify that, I can come back to it.
Sure.
We have another question. What is there a list of contact names and websites of recommended coil wire fabricators and manufacturers by region?
So we can only talk about ourselves. So we're based in Portland and can service literally the country and the world. So contact us directly on our website, and you can have, there's several contacts there. You can always reach out to us directly. As far as other providers, I really wouldn't know who to point you to.
Okay. Deborah asked if you could talk about sprinkler spread interference.
Okay.
So with sprinklers, is that it depends on where you are located within the United States and what their code is. Most of them come to, it needs something that is a 70% open material, which we do fall into that category. Another way to go around that is by suspending the actual system itself. So by lowering it below the sprinkler heads, it allows the sprinkler heads to come over the top of the material and cascade down. So there's a lot of different options that can be looked at depending on the design and the sprinkler system that is going to be installed.
Great. Jean would like to know, what are the different finishes available for light refraction, i.e. gloss, matte, etc.?
Yeah, so the cool thing with us is we have the capability to apply those finishes in-house. So there's a wide range of colors that are readily available, but we can also do custom colors. So if you want to give us an RAL number, we'll typically match that, and we can achieve, the exact color that you're specifying. From there, we always like and prefer to use a metallic fleck. We can do just, like a regular color, but we feel like it gives it a little bit more depth and interest by using a real fine metallic fleck, like the material that you see on the screen here. And then in addition to that, we can also have like a high gloss finish or a matte finish. Let's say you're using it where you want really nice visibility through the material. You might go with a gray or a dark in a matte finish, and that will make it less reflective and easier to see through. In contrast, if you want it to be a little more reflective, you might use a brighter color with a metallic fleck that is also gloss. And so that's going to really increase that reflectivity. And so all those things, we can talk with you through those options and see what fits best with your design.
Thanks. Can you talk about maintenance? How is it maintained or cleaned, interior and exterior?
Yeah, maintenance is a great consideration to talk to your clients about. It's metal, right? So it's durable, it's low maintenance. If you're looking at a ceiling project like the one, again, you see here on the screen, most of the fabric is in a vertical coil direction when it's like drapery or a ceiling feature. And so if you think about all the curve, it's very rounded. Also, the curves kind of spiral down. So it's not going to gather dust. So from a maintenance standpoint, in that sense, as far as cleaning, it really sloughs off dust naturally. Just the natural movement of the fabric is going to keep it clean. So minimal maintenance. At most, the client's going to, go over it with a duster. If it needs a little bit more cleaning for some reason, you can use a mild detergent or an organic solvent. Nothing harsh to clean it with, just like wiping it down. And for exterior, you're probably looking at, we would love to see it be power washed once a year. If it's in a climate that has a lot of rainfall, you may not even really need that. But ideally, power washing it would really be the only requirement. And again, that would be with a very mild solution, never anything chemical or harsh to be cleaned with.
Great. For interior applications, does it usually require any structural addition / support at the ceiling to hold the weight of the wire fabric?
Most of the time, no. We can actually utilize what's already on the structure. It's going to be dependent on a lot of different factors. So that's something that we can work with you on, of what's existing there, what the application type is, if it's operable, if it's stationary. But 90% of the time, we can already utilize what is already existing within the space.
Great. Has the mesh ever been used as a security screen?
Yes. Oh my goodness, yes. It's funny. That's one thing that a lot of people don't realize that we have available. There was a couple slides in the presentation that did show examples of security gates, and that is a phenomenal application that we have. So We can provide different components to make it a secure space. In many situations, it can be very light security. It's basically just to keep honest people honest. So maybe it just closes and has a lock. From there, we can increase the level of security by adding foot bolts or channels to make it more secure. So absolutely, there's some great information to get you started on the website. There's also a area in the website that helps you see the different layouts that are available. If you want to take a look at those, it's easy to get pretty overwhelmed quickly because there are so many choices. So I would encourage you, send us a plan or a layout, and let's schedule a Teams meeting, and we can sit down with you and just ask you all the questions of how it's going to be operable or operated, how the client wants it to function. You know, do you want it to go into a pocket or to stack in the open area? We'll give you details, stacking area, and all those kind of things so that you can get it specified exactly what you need. And then we can always write a 3-part spec for that. So it's never going to be something you would put to the street, but we're used, if everybody has maybe seen the PDX Portland Airport that just got a lot of media recently. Our security gates are all through that, and they look phenomenal. So we're very excited to see that project done.
Mark has a question about acoustic performance. Do you have ASATM acoustic test data?
So our material is actually acoustically transparent. So therefore, we don't really need to run those testing on the material because it does allow those sound to transfer through, which does, of course, make it very ideal for theater applications or concerts where you're looking for a product that isn't going to interfere with those sound waves that are coming through. It is not going to be, unfortunately, a way to block sound or to inhibit sound within a space, but it is a very beautiful decorative way to kind of hide those, like acoustical panels or something along the wall as a great way to create texture or to give that beautiful element to hide those.
Great. Gary and Christine want to know about ice and snow loads. The question is, what about ice formation on the fabric in winter outdoor situations?
Yeah. So that is going to be taken into account with our engineering team. So we would look at what those ice and snow loads are, and we would factor that into our PE calcs. Typically, on an exterior project like that, we would run preliminary calcs so that then your structural engineers can design the structure and connections based on those preliminary calculations. And then, once it is moving forward, then we would provide those calcs as a part of our scope. With ice and snow, we many times will calculate it as if it were a sheet as far as the attachments being able to support it. The reality is, because it's textured and open, it's never going to create a scenario where, like with glass, sometimes it can gather onto that and then maybe slide off and become a danger to people around it. It usually will melt, and so it doesn't really gather the ice and snow like other products might. So.
Can the coil wire fabric be spliced in both directions?
It
No.
cannot.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we wish it could. We have tried it many of times, but it just it creates a very interesting effect onto the material by trying to splice it. So it can only be spliced in the coil direction, whether that be vertically or horizontally.
Okay.
We have done a couple projects though where it can be like connected. So there's other ways to attach it. And of course it would depend on your design. Usually how we work is, if you want to send us even in schematic design, an idea of here's the look that we have, or here's the concept that we're looking at, we'll sit down with you and just evaluate the better direction, like what coil direction is best, what kind of attachment method would be ideal, and then just work through how it would be attached, what kind of pricing you're looking at, and just give you some direction and option, and talk about those ideas. So yeah.
What would be a typical price range for fabric coil systems?
That's a great question. And everybody hates when everybody says it depends. So to try to not say that and to give you guys at least a precise answer, I'll break it down into a couple different categories. So for interiors, our sweet spot is usually anywhere between 55 to 65 a square foot. And that's going to be the completely fully engineered system. So that's going to be the material, the attachment system, shop drawings, submittal samples, everything that comes in that complete package. For exterior, that's a tough one because it depends on how much coverage you're actually going to be doing. So it can be as low as $30 a square foot. It can be as high as $150 a square foot. It just depends on what's covered and how much hardware is needed. But as far as like an average would be somewhere between 40 and 50 a square foot for exterior applications. And lastly would be our security components that we mentioned before. Those usually fall in the range within 65 to 85 a square foot, and that's because of the additional hardware that comes with the systems. And just to kind of branch off of that unfortunately that is just for the material. That does not include installation. We do not provide installation. We are the manufacturers of the material, but we have a lot of subcontractors throughout the whole United States and even the world that have a lot of experience with our materials, and that we're more than happy to assist the general contractor or even you guys on connecting you with those subcontractors to get a better idea of what that installation cost would be.
I think we have time for one more question. There's a question about applications in chlorine and high humidity environments. Can you talk about connections that are natatorium rated in pool environments?
So basically you want to pick the right material for that. So we would encourage you to go with a 316 stainless steel. Depending on the environment, stainless steel is stainless, it's not stain proof. So, the right maintenance would have to be applied to that as well. So we would look at all those connections to make sure that they were also stainless. But again, you would have to have the right maintenance program for that system.
Great. So that's all the time we have for questions. I'm going to give some closing words. Thank you all so much for attending the live webinar, Lighting Effects with Coiled Wire Fabric, a CE Strong webinar series powered by the Architects newspaper. This presentation was sponsored by Cascade Architectural. This webinar is recorded and can be easily replayed using the same registration link. Please allow 7 business days to process certificates of participation and AAA credit reporting for this presentation. A big thank you again to our presenters Ann Smith and Amy Allen, and to Cascade Architectural for sponsoring this webinar. We hope to see you all again at a future event. Have a great day.